Level 1. Hang around. You're 19. Nobody invites you into a 1% motorcycle club. You show up enough times, doing enough small, unglamorous things, that eventually somebody stops asking you to leave. That's the entire application process, and it can take a year before anyone even tells you whether it's working. You start coming around the clubhouse because your older cousin rides with them, not because anyone promised you anything. You wash bikes. You run to the store for cigarettes and ice. You sit outside meetings you're not allowed into, listening to nothing through a closed door, learning patience without anyone teaching it to you directly. Winters are the hardest test nobody names as one. The bikes mostly stay parked, the runs stop, and the only thing left to prove yourself through is simply continuing to show up when there's nothing exciting happening at all. No rides, no runs, just cold mornings cleaning a garage that doesn't need cleaning as badly as everyone pretends it does. Half the hang-arounds who started with you stop coming around by February. You don't. Not because you're braver than they are. Because nobody ever told you showing up was supposed to be exciting. A full patch member named Boone, quiet, heavily built, older than everyone else who bothers talking to you, is the first one who says more than 5 words in your direction. You're not here yet, he tells you one night, nodding at the clubhouse door. You're here. He points at the ground outside it. Long way between those two spots. You don't know yet how long. You'll find out. Your cousin, the one who got you in the door in the first place, tells you something that first winter that you don't fully believe until years later. Nobody here needs you, he says. That's the whole point. You have to make yourself needed, on your own, with nobody helping you do it. You spend the next several months proving, in small unglamorous ways, that you can be exactly that. Level 2. Prospect. You're 22. After 3 years of hanging around, the members vote, and you're allowed to prospect, which means you now wear a bottom rocker patch that tells the world exactly what you are. Not a member, not nothing. Something in between that has to prove itself every single day for as long as the club decides it takes. Prospecting isn't one test, it's hundreds of small ones stacked on top of each other. You handle security at the clubhouse door during church, the members' meetings you're still not allowed to sit in on. You run errands at 3 a.m. without complaint. You keep your mouth shut about things you overhear that were never meant for you, and you do it consistently, enough that eventually nobody bothers lowering their voice around you anymore. Boone becomes your sponsor, the member responsible for vouching for you, which means your mistakes are partly his now too. He corrects you exactly once in your first 6 months, when you show up 11 minutes late to a security post on a club run. He doesn't yell. 11 minutes is the difference between a problem staying small and a problem finding you, he says, and walks away before you can respond. The prospect cut, a designated patch worn during this period that marks you as unfinished business rather than a stranger, draws attention you didn't ask for, from rival clubs who test prospects specifically because prospects are still learning how to hold their composure under provocation. You're tested twice that first year at neutral bars, where members of different clubs are technically allowed to drink in the same room. Both times, you keep your hands still and your mouth shut, exactly the way Boone drilled into you before either incident happened. Neither test escalates past words. That, you learn, is usually the entire point of the test in the first place. You watch 2 other prospects wash out over the following year. One who couldn't keep his temper in check during a tense standoff with a rival club at a bar. Another who simply stopped showing up when the demands got harder than his patience. Neither gets a second chance. There isn't one to give. The prospect period has no fixed end date, which is deliberate. Some men prospect for a year. Others prospect for 3. Nobody tells you which one you'll be, and asking is itself considered a small mark against you, a sign you're more focused on the finish line than the work in front of you. You stop asking sometime in your 2nd year, not because you've given up wondering, but because you've finally understood the question was never going to help you. Level 3. Full patch member. You're 25. The vote for full patch has to be unanimous. Every member in the chapter. No exceptions. No partial credit. You don't get to watch the meeting where it happens. You just get called in afterward and handed your colors, the full set of patches that mark you as a member of the club rather than someone trying to become one. Boone shakes your hand for the first time in 3 years of knowing him. Long way between those 2 spots, he says again, echoing the line from your first night hanging around. You made it. Don't get comfortable. Comfortable is how members forget what got them here. The patch itself weighs almost nothing. What it represents takes most members years to stop feeling the weight of. You wear it to a family gathering that winter, the first time most of your relatives outside your cousin have seen you in colors, and the room's reaction, half pride, half unspoken worry, tells you more about what you've actually joined than any speech at the clubhouse ever did. Your first real test as a full patch member, rather than a prospect performing for one, comes 8 months in, when a disagreement between you and another new member over a shared responsibility nearly turns personal. Boone doesn't step in to settle it for you. He simply tells you both, separately, that the club doesn't run on members liking each other, only on members being able to trust each other, and that the two of you have exactly one meeting to figure out the difference on your own. You do. It's not comfortable. It works. Your first year as a full patch member is quieter than prospecting in some ways, louder in others. You're now trusted with the club's actual business, its finances, its disputes, its relationships with other chapters and other clubs, information that was carefully kept from you during your prospect years for reasons you finally understand now that you're on the other side of that door. You attend your first national run that summer, hundreds of riders from chapters across the country converging on the same stretch of highway for 3 days, and you understand for the first time what the club actually is beyond your own chapter's clubhouse walls. It's bigger than you, older than you, and entirely indifferent to whether you personally last inside it. That indifference, oddly, is what finally makes you take the whole thing seriously. Level 4, Road Captain. You're 29. You're given responsibility for planning and running the chapter's rides, from weekend runs to major regional gatherings that bring hundreds of riders from multiple chapters into the same stretch of highway at once. Logistics, route security, contingency planning for weather, breakdowns, and the ever-present possibility of trouble with a rival club sharing the same roads. Your first major run under your planning is a 300-mile charity ride benefiting local veterans, the kind of event that puts the club's reputation on display to an entire town that mostly only hears about the other side of who you are. You plan the route down to fuel, stops and rest breaks. It runs without incident. The chapter president mentions it once, briefly, in church. Clean run, he says. Keep them clean. That's the whole review. A second run that same year, a smaller one, nearly goes wrong when a mechanical failure strands 6 riders 40 miles from the nearest town at dusk. You'd built a contingency for exactly this into the route plan, a designated recovery point, and a chase vehicle nobody expected to actually need. It works exactly as planned. Nobody outside the club ever hears about it. That's fine. It was never for them. Road captain is the role most members underestimate until they've done it once. Every mile a chapter rides together is a mile where 40 or 50 men on machines capable of killing them are relying entirely on decisions you made days or weeks earlier. You start carrying a small notebook everywhere, logging fuel stops, weather patterns, and construction detours on every route the chapters ever run, a habit Boone never taught you and that nobody asked you to start. 3 years in, it's the most consulted document in the clubhouse. A national run the following summer puts your planning to its hardest test yet, coordinating with road captains from 6 other chapters to move nearly 400 riders through 3 states without a single serious incident. You spend 2 full months on logistics calls before a single bike leaves the driveway. When it's over, another chapter's road captain, a man twice your age with decades more experience, asks who planned the route. When he finds out it was you, he doesn't say much. He just nods once, the same economical nod you've been earning from Boone for years, and you understand you've just been welcomed into a much smaller, much older fraternity than the one you already belong to. Before we go any further, if you're this deep into the ranks with us already, drop a comment on what you want to see next, hit that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Level 5, Secretary-Treasurer. You're 33. You take on the chapter's books, dues, and the sensitive, unglamorous work of keeping the club's finances organized enough to survive both internal disputes and outside scrutiny that never really stops. It's a job built almost entirely on discretion. Nobody outside a small circle sees these numbers. Nobody inside that circle talks about them outside it either. A discrepancy in the dues ledger 6 months into the role turns out to be an honest bookkeeping error by the previous secretary. Not anything worse, but proving that takes you 3 weeks of quiet, careful reconciliation before you're willing to bring it to the table. Boone, retired from officer roles now, but still around, still watching, tells you afterward that you handled it the right way. You didn't accuse first and check later, he says. Most people do it backward. That's why most people don't last in this seat. You spend most of that year learning that discretion is the actual job description, far more than arithmetic. Members trust you with numbers that could end friendships if handled carelessly, and you develop a habit of saying less in casual conversation than you know. Not out of secrecy for its own sake, but because you've watched what happens to the trust of a man who can't tell the difference between what's his to share and what isn't. You're also the officer who deals most directly with the club's relationship to the outside world. Insurance for the clubhouse, permits for charity events, the unglamorous paperwork that keeps a 1% club's lawful business lawful, even while its reputation suggests otherwise to anyone who's never actually sat in this chair. You spend more hours than you expected on a folding chair at the county permit office than you ever spent on the back of a bike that year, and you understand, somewhere in month 4, that this too is part of what the patch actually costs. Level 6, Sergeant at Arms. You're 37. You're responsible for club discipline and security, the officer position that exists because every organization built on brotherhood also needs someone willing to enforce its rules. When brotherhood alone isn't enough to keep them, it's the role members respect most and want least, in roughly equal measure. The job is physically demanding in ways the earlier roles weren't. You're the one standing closest to the door when a rival club's intentions at a shared event are unclear. The one who has to read a room full of tension in under a second and decide whether it needs de-escalating or simply watching. Boone, long past his own years in a role like this, tells you once that the best sergeants at arms he ever knew were the ones who spent most of their career being quietly unnecessary, because a room that never gets to the point of needing them is a room they've already done their job in. Brotherhood in this club is not agreement. It is loyalty that survives disagreement, enforced fairly enough that nobody has reason to stop believing in it. Your hardest call in the role comes when a dispute between two long-standing members over a personal debt threatens to split the chapter's loyalty down the middle. You spend 2 weeks mediating privately with each side before bringing it to church, where you lay out the facts plainly and let the vote decide it, rather than deciding it yourself. The chapter votes. The debt is settled. Nobody leaves angry enough to leave for good. A senior member tells you afterward that you handled the hardest part of the job correctly. You made yourself irrelevant to the outcome and let the club's own rules do the deciding. A second, harder situation arrives 18 months later, when a prospect is accused, credibly, of talking to people outside the club about business that was never his to discuss. You handle the investigation the same way you handled the ledger dispute years before. Boone taught you to, methodically, without assuming guilt before the facts are in. The accusation turns out to be true. The consequences are the club's to decide, not yours, and you carry out what the vote determines without adding anything of your own to it. That restraint, more than anything else you do in the role, is what earns you the respect of members twice your age. Sergeant at Arms is also, quietly, the officer who has the most contact with the club's relationship to law enforcement, a relationship that's adversarial by default and, occasionally, carefully, cooperative when the club's own interests and a lawful investigation happen to align, such as when a member is genuinely the victim of an outside crime. You learn the difference between the two situations fast, because getting it wrong in either direction costs the chapter something it can't easily get back, either its safety or its standing. Level 7, Vice President. You're 42. You step into the chapter's second highest seat, running day-to-day chapter business and standing in whenever the president can't. It's a position built on trust, earned over decades, rather than any single accomplishment, and everyone in the room knows exactly how long it took you to earn it. You mentor a young prospect named Deke through his hardest stretch, watching him nearly wash out the same way you watched others wash out 20 years earlier. You don't go easy on him. You just make sure the standard he's being held to is the same one you were held to, no more, no less, and when he finally makes full patch, you're the one who hands him his colors, the same way Boone once handed you yours. You spend much of this appointment representing the chapter at regional meetings with other clubs, learning a different kind of discipline than the one you built as Sergeant at Arms. The discipline of holding a hard line in a negotiation without letting pride turn a disagreement into something the chapter can't walk back from. Cutter, the president, brings you to nearly every one of these meetings that year, not because he needs the company, but because he's quietly deciding, the whole time, whether you're ready for the seat he's sitting in. Deke's near washout as a prospect happens on your watch as vice president, and you recognize in him something you don't say out loud, the same doubt you carried through your own second-year prospecting, the sense that everyone else somehow already belongs, and you're the only one still auditioning. You don't tell him it gets easier. You just keep giving him tasks slightly harder than the last one, the same slow escalation Boone once used on you, until one day he stops looking like he's auditioning and starts looking like he simply belongs. Level 8, Chapter President. You're 48. You're elected chapter president after the previous one. A man named Cutter, who's led the chapter for 11 years, steps down and hands you the gavel with almost nothing said beyond one sentence that stays with you longer than any speech would have. The patch doesn't make the man. It just makes everyone finally able to see what was already there. Then he's gone, retired to the back of the room where senior members sit and watch rather than lead. Your first year as president is spent mostly listening, in church and out of it, to a chapter full of men who've each spent decades earning the right to be heard. Which means your job is less about deciding things yourself and more about making sure every decision the chapter reaches actually holds once the meeting ends. Boone, near 80 now, still shows up most weeks, saying less than he used to, watching more than he ever has. You catch him watching you sometimes, in a way that reminds you, uncomfortably, of the way you used to watch the door of the clubhouse from the outside, 30 years earlier, wondering how far away it really was. Your hardest decision as president comes 18 months in, when a younger chapter in a neighboring state, struggling with internal discipline problems that threaten the reputation of every chapter connected to it, asks your chapter for guidance neither Cutter nor anyone before him ever had to give. You spend a full month traveling back and forth, listening more than advising, before the situation resolves itself through the same patient, procedural approach you learned as sergeant-at-arms decades earlier. Let the facts surface fully, let the people involved be heard, and only then, let the consequences follow. It's slow, it's not satisfying in the moment. It's also the only approach you've ever seen actually hold. Years later, at a charity toy run the chapter has hosted every winter for longer than most. Members have been alive, a kid, maybe 19, hanging around the edge of the clubhouse lot the way you once did, works up the nerve to ask you what it actually takes to end up wearing the patch you're wearing. You think of Boone's line about the distance between standing outside a door and being let through it, Deke's hardest stretch as a prospect, a dues discrepancy that took 3 weeks to clear honestly instead of hours to clear by guessing. Longer than you want it to take, you say, and it's not the bike that gets you here, it's showing up for the boring parts nobody else wants to do, for years, before anyone lets you near the parts that matter. The kid looks past you at the line of bikes parked outside the clubhouse, chrome catching the last of the winter light, then back at you, weighing whether the answer he got is the one he wanted. He doesn't understand yet. He will.